Joe Calzaghe when he fought against Bernard Hopkins. What a fight that was, because like no one ever expected Joe to do a job on him the way he did. And then a lot of people thought Bernard Hopkins was done because of such a beating Joe Calzaghe gave him. But then when he came back, Bernard Hopkins, 2-3 years later, he won another world title. So Joe Calzaghe beat a good Bernard Hopkins. It just shows what his class was in the sport.
I tell you, I went to the first time I went to the States was nice. After I beat Eubank, I went out there for the first time. There was a convention to pick my belts up, and I watched Oscar De La Hoya against Felix Trinidad.
I remember.
They were the two biggest names, so I just beat Chris Eubank, so to go there was fantastic. I actually thought that De La Hoya might have edged that fight, but they gave it to Trinidad. But it was nice to go there and see these fighters and think one day this is where I'm going to be. And who's to know, like 10 years later, I'd be there fighting against Hopkins.
Probably, I like Dre when he fought Kovalev the second time. I like the build up, and both Dre Kovalev fights was good fights. So I like that kind of fight.
Best fight I've ever been to. Well, there's been a few. I think that Katie Taylor and Pursuit was brilliant, and that whole show with AJ and Reeves, like AJ getting beat when no one expected him to. That was a brilliant card and bill. I'm trying to think about probably the best fight, a small hall fight. Stephen Ward against Liam Conroy, and it's a fight that will be overlooked and a lot of people may not even know about. But if you were there witnessing that ringside live, what a fight that was. Unreal. Blood and guts from both guys. Both guys hurt a number of times. We got a controversy at the end. Atmosphere was amazing. Crowd right on top of the ring. Me having a personal relationship with one of the fighters, that was the best fight that I've ever seen live.
Derek Chisora, Carlos Takam.
The best fight I watched live was Carl Frampton against Santa Cruz in New York when he beat Santa Cruz. Obviously, with me being in the same stable as Carl and being good pals with him as well. Just watching him doing that fight and performing the way he did and what it meant to him and his family, and the way he performed was just brilliant. You know, he beat the best fighter on the planet at the weight, and you know, a lot of people were kind of writing him off because Santa Cruz was deemed to be a monster, and he performed out his skill at the point. But I'd say that fight there, because I felt real proud to be in the same stable as him. So I'd say Carl Frampton versus Santa Cruz.
The first Floyd Mayweather fight I went to, and that was Floyd against Guerrero. I'd never seen such punch perfect skills up close and personal. It was fantastic to watch. It was like centimeters. That's how much the punches were missing by. Floyd, unless you've seen him in the flesh, you will never appreciate him.
Down the York Hall, it was Leo McKenzie. I can't remember who he boxed though. I think it was his last fight. But I remember that fight being a real slugfest down the York Hall. And everyone down the York Hall was jumping and shouting up. And that was a real good fight. That was probably the best fight I've seen, you know.
Manny Pacquiao versus Matisse in Kuala Lumpur.
Wow. So what was that like?
Yeah. It was a great fight. It was a great evening of boxing. I went to watch Mifalane Maruti at the time when I wasn't a champion, and it was like umming and ahhing whether we was going to fight him for the IBF title. So we went to watch him. So it was a real kind of big night for me because it made me believe that I could go on to win a world title. And the fight in itself was a great fight, and it showed that Manny Pacquiao still had it at his age.
Well, I've been very fortunate in my job in commentating on a lot of good fights. Actually being ringside and seeing it all unfold was probably AJ versus Klitschko, because it was such an humdinger of a contest. 1 minute you thought AJ was going to win by knockout, and the next minute Klitschko hangs on and then turns it around and AJ's out on his feet. It was just one of those fights where you just didn't know where he was going to go, and then sensationally, and then he knocks him out at the end. So that was an incredible fight. I've been to a few, some real big ones, but I think that for the roller coaster ride of that contest, I'd have to say AJ versus Klitschko was a tremendous fight. But you know, like I say, I've been to many. Tyson Fury against Klitschko over in Germany was an incredible fight. What happened? But in terms of the excitement, I would say probably AJ Klitschko.
I was sat in the front row in the front circle. Was the World Boxing Super Series, Emmanuel Rodriguez, Naira Inoue. It lasted 2 rounds, but I rate both of them fighters so highly. And Inoue I've been onto for years. Rodriguez, I was like, wow, you know what? He can actually really box, and he showed in that first round how good of a boxer he is. But it was pretty obvious he was dead at the weight as well. You could see that. So I think he just thought, I'm going to trade him and hopefully I'll land. Didn't. But the reason why I enjoyed that so much is because I realised how scary Inoue is.
Tyson and Klitschko. You know, I was only young at the time. I was 16, and I was there for, you know, unification fight. Tyson getting all the belts from Klitschko in his own backyard in Germany. You know, the Wilder fight was obviously great, but I think it was just more special because that was the defining night. That was when he became, you know, undisputed world heavyweight champion. So I don't think any night will ever top that for me personally.
I think me just being a fan, at least, I could say the first fight between Mayweather and Maidana, personally, because for me, it was actually scary because we never seen Floyd in that type of predicament in a long time, and that was actually some few scares in that fight, but it was a good fight. I think I said another one was actually the Fury Wilder, the rematch recently, because I got to actually experience how it is when the UK fans come over, and it was just wild. It was just wild in there. Like you couldn't hear anything. You couldn't. It was just ecstatic in there. But of course, like the heavyweight fights is always bring great atmosphere, especially when you have a UK fighter that's involved in that type of fight.